But here's what I'm going to say, okay? How do they compare to Wilson Audio? How does Von Schweikert, specifically the Ultra 7s, compare to the flagship models from Wilson Audio? And I said this before, if Magico and Sonus Faber had a baby, it will be, in my opinion, the Von Schweikert, okay? Because they have, this speaker has so much of both brands, okay? But what it doesn't have, and I have to be blunt, is the vice grip effect that Wilson Audio has. You got to be dead in the middle to really enjoy a Wilson Audio in its full glory. And I just got done explaining to you how amazing this speaker is with off-axis response, right? I just got done telling you that that is not the case with a Wilson Audio speaker, unfortunately. That's never been the case. Anyone who believes that you're going to get incredible sound out of a Wilson Audio speaker when you're seated off to the right or to the left is delusional. I mean, they really need to get their mind checked, because that doesn't happen with a Wilson Audio speaker, okay? So that's one thing where they are different. Another way of looking at them is when it comes to the flexibility of the Von Schweikert, you have far more flexibility. Now, I know with Wilson Audio, you do the time alignment. I know you take measurements from the tweeter to your head and then from your ear to the floor. I understand you get that tweakability with the Wilson Audio, but it is not the same as what you can achieve with the Ultra 7. Not only from, of course, the fact that you have the rear array where you can do the ambient enhancement, right, to add more of whatever it is that you're looking for, but also the bass output. If you have the active version of the Ultra 7, you can add more, or you can take away more of the bass, depending on your preferences. So you have that added tunability with the speaker that you really don't have with not just Wilson, but other loudspeakers that don't have an active bass section. Remember, when you are setting up a speaker that's fully passive, something you need to keep in mind is you're going to have a lot more trade-offs with that type of design, because let's just say you're looking for more bass output. We know what to do, right? Put the speakers closer to the boundaries to get more bass reinforcement. It's common sense. We all know that by now. I hope you do. But what happens is when you do that, sometimes you end up compromising other key areas of the sound reproduction, or the frequency response of the speaker. If you put the speakers too far apart, depending on the model, of course, to gain more bass and reinforcement, sometimes you might lose the mid-range. You begin to do this to the speaker, right? Or maybe you begin to make the rest of the frequency response on the speaker, or the frequency range of the speaker, sound a little more muddy, a little more blended, because you added too much bass reinforcement. And so what do? Okay, I got too much bass. Let me move the speakers farther from the walls to gain a little more clarity on the speaker, but you now lean out the bass. So you see how one thing affects the other, right? Well, with this particular speaker and what it does, remember, you don't have that trade-off, because if you're looking for more bass, and let's say they happen to have the best clarity, the best detail and extension when it comes to the top end, but you find them a little lean, you go to the back of the speaker, you reinforce that with that adjustment. You don't have to give up that extra, top end and clarity that you're looking for. You really don't have that with passive speakers. It's a trade-off. It's a compromise. You have to decide between, damn it, I wish I had more bass here, but I can't give up that mid-range where the speakers are positioned, right? So you leave them there, right? And learning to live with a leaner sound signature when it comes to bass output, right? You're not going to worry about that with the Von Schweikert Ultra 7s. So another thing that I think I need to say very candidly is, I feel personally, and I've done a lot of consultations with many of you, you tend to have a problem with Wilson Audio's bass output if they're not in the proper room. Setup is critical with any speaker, not just Wilson Audio. Every speaker deserves proper speaker placement, not just them. But I do find more issues oftentimes with Wilson Audio speakers as far as bass. Okay, they need a wall behind them. I remember having the XVXs here, which are arguably one of the best speakers I've had in here. But I remember having to make compromises, at least in my room, maybe not in your room, but in my room. And I had to kind of always be like tinkering with, okay, can we move them back a little more to gain a little more bass? And mind you, those are big speakers, right? And I couldn't be anywhere near as satisfied as I am with the performance of these when it comes to the bottom end. And this is a much smaller loudspeaker. What does that tell you? What does that tell you, right? The tunability, the adjustment of the speaker is just so much better here than what I had with Wilson Audio.